Welcome back to the Takeout. According to critics, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and the Trump administration writ large have been pushing a quote-unquote anti-science agenda. But a new book, Science Under Siege, argues it is not just the federal government that is putting public health and science at risk. Here's my conversation with climate scientist and the book's co-author, Michael Mann. Michael, great to have you here in the Conversation Corner. Science Under Siege is the book. You have 5 Ps that are problematic in this space. I want to let you run them down. First, plutocrats.
Yeah, thanks, Major. It's great to be with you. I'm a sucker for alliteration, and so we've got plutocrats, we've got petrostates, we've got
professionals,
the pros, the propagandists, and yes, the press
and the
as
press.
well.
Okay, can't wait for that one. But let's start with plutocrats. Why are they a problem in this question of what happens to science and how we digest what we learn?
Yeah, so there's this massive anti-science infrastructure now, conservative media, social media that's been weaponized to promote misinformation. Elon Musk, when he took over Twitter, the algorithm was actually tweaked in a way that really promotes a lot of the misinformation, anti-science misinformation, suppresses actual good scientific information. And so a lot of this infrastructure is funded by a relatively small number of plutocrats, Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch media empire, people like Elon Musk, the Koch brothers who have funded these various think tanks and front groups that promote climate denial, and yes, also anti-vax propaganda.
Petrostates.
Yeah, so, typically we think about Russia, Saudi Arabia. These are countries that primarily derive their economy from the extraction of resources and, in particular, fossil fuels. Russia, Saudi Arabia. But right now, given the politics, the prevailing politics in the U.S., we would have to consider the United States a petrostate as well.
And professionals.
Yeah, so I sort of lump the professionals and the propagandists. These are basically the folks down in the trenches. They're talking heads who are paid to promote, to spout misinformation, anti-science misinformation about climate change, about renewable energy, about vaccination. They are trolls and bots, bot armies that have been weaponized to spread misinformation on social media. But these are basically the individuals who help spread these anti-science talking points that are fostered by the plutocrats and the petrostates. These are the guys down in the trenches spreading it.
Are there any of the professionals you're concerned about within the Trump administration?
Well, there certainly are. I mean, RFK Jr., who, now we have as head of Health and Human Services, somebody who is staunchly anti-vaccine at a time when we are so fundamentally threatened, coming out of COVID-19, but there is the threat of ever more deadly pandemics. And we are seeing in the Trump administration, because of the policies of RFK Jr., we're seeing a movement away from vaccination, a movement away from all the public health measures that we need to deal with these threats.
And I'm personally involved in the 5th P, the press.
Yeah, so, there's the conservative press. I mentioned the Murdoch media empire that has promoted climate denialism on, Fox News, the Wall Street Journal editorial pages, various conservative newspapers around the world.
Websites and the like.
Websites websites. We're talking print media, we're talking television media. So even though we call it the press, we're really talking about the media writ large. And the conservative media, in large part, has played the primary role in spreading this anti-science misinformation. But we do take to task the legacy media. Mm-hmm. And we're talking New York Times, we're talking Washington Post, who are increasingly engaged in what we call performative neutrality, where they present anti-science. For example, the lab leak theory. There's no scientific support for the lab leak theory of COVID-19. All of the scientific evidence supports what we call the zoonotic spillover. There are DNA markers that tell us that that's what's happened. So the peer-reviewed literature, the science says it was zoonotic. It was from bats, pangolins, wet markets. That's how it originated. But there is this conspiracy theory that it was a lab leak in China, in Wuhan, China, and the New York Times, the Washington Post have platformed that pseudoscientific theory.
On this point, people will decide for themselves, Michael, what information is, or misinformation or disinformation is. And that has become a sort of consumer preference that has real-world consequences. But they're going to do that, and you labeling it misinformation or disinformation isn't going to land with them. You know this.
Yeah, you know, I hearken back to the days of, you know, CBS Evening News when Walter Cronkite would tell us that's the way it was on whatever date it was. And we all accepted this set of common facts, and we could agree to disagree about the implications.
Within those parameters.
Within those parameters, and we've lost that. We've lost that sort of trusted, you know, messengers that provide, you know, so we're no longer dealing with the same universes of facts in the conservative world and in the progressive world. And it makes it very difficult to have conversations about crises that we face, like the climate crisis or, you know, COVID-19 pandemics, when we can't even agree on the basic science, because we can't solve these problems without understanding what's causing them.
And Science Under Siege is one way to maybe balance those scales. Michael Mann, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.